I show that it's 6:30. We have a quorum. So if you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Hold it. Hold on, we got to get our recording going.
Yeah.
That is awful loud tonight. Am I speaking up or what's the deal?
I thought you wanted us to stand up. I'm just checking.
I know, but he said hold on.
I feel like a shrimp next to you. I know. It's natural programming.
Doing my best here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Vicki Russell sent an email notifying us that she's not feeling well, so she will not be attending tonight. So this would be an excused absence for her. Any agenda adjustments?
I have none this evening.
Consideration of the minutes. Move to approve the minutes of the April 6, 2022 special meeting, the April 13, 2022 regular board meeting, and the April 14, 2022 special board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, corrections? I sent in a couple. Diane?
I sent it in, but I'm not sure if it was corrected on.
I sent the new one out.
Okay.
Yes. I think Michelle sent the new copy out.
Okay.
Yes, it has been corrected.
Are there any other that anybody saw that would like to submit them? Okay, seeing none, then all those in favor? Thank you. Public comments. At this time, I'll open it up for the public who want to make comments dealing and pertaining with the school board or the school operations. Anybody in the audience here is more than welcome to come up to the mic. Please give us your name and town of residence. Anybody online? Any people out there?
Nobody right at the moment.
Wow. Okay. Anybody want to make a comment?
Sharon doesn't want to.
No, we don't let Sharon do it. All right, seeing none, then we'll move on. Petitions and communications?
I have none.
I have none either. Report, superintendent's report.
So obviously we're coming off vacation week. I think everybody needed a week. I think our students needed a week, and I know our staff needed a week. Leading up to, there's something about March. March is a really, really long month. And when you draw that in from February break to April break, it is a long one. I always said for a long time that I'd love to see April break and February break condensed into March, so that because February break always seems a little quick. April break can't come soon enough. So it's one of those things. If you go on the website, we posted up today, the budget documents are all there. I took the budget presentation that I did and put voiceover on it, so you can see that. That's all up. I'll have a presentation ready for the district budget meeting on the 18th. We will need a moderator. I have reached out to somebody who's done it in the past. Obviously, they'll need to be elected as a moderator for that meeting. Other than that, I think Finance and Facilities Committee will probably cover the other stuff that's been going on. So we're back into the swing of things. I worry, I say this every year, I always worry about our kids over break. I worry about them. There's a lot going on in our homes. There's a lot going on for kids, and I always worry about, what went on the week we're gone and those kind of things. So, they've come back. Our staff are amazing and have good eyes on them, but there's just a lot that happens on those weeks. So working through those things as well. So that concludes my report.
Any questions? All right. Director of CAI report.
Ooh, Assistant Superintendent.
Oh, Assistant
I
Superintendent.
need to change that.
Oh, yeah.
My microphone broke, so I'm going to talk nice and loud.
Would you like to borrow mine? It's
No.
working really good.
I have a nice, loud teacher voice. It's okay.
Yes, she does.
So in terms of Director of Food Service, I'll start with that. Tomorrow we have our last phone call for our audit. I just want to thank all of the food service managers that supported. We had to gather over 300 documents for this audit. So we have another phone call tomorrow that they answer questions that we had. They asked us to gather more information, so usually another week of food and financials, and so we'll do that. Hopefully we finalize by Friday, and then we'll get a report in May and June, so I'll share that once we do. The other piece too is before April vacation, I did attend the Superintendent's Conference, the MSSA conference. It was nice. It was the first time that we were together. I haven't seen superintendent colleagues in a couple of years in person. We had some really nice sessions regarding meeting with all of the colleges all over Maine. And we had conversations about how are they responding to COVID, specifically how are they meeting our students' needs when they're leaving us. So how are they meeting the SEL needs? How are the kids doing with their hybrid, because they were doing some online classes and in person. How are they adjusting? So instead of always looking at how are we preparing our kids for college, whether that's tech or 4-year and those kind of things, how are they meeting our kids' needs from where they're at? And so that was the first time that conversation really kind of started, and it will be the first of many. So that was a really good start. The other piece, we're starting to have lots of conversations about the CDS law and bill. So that's coming around the pike. I know Andy had shared that, so there'll be more information regarding what are other districts doing and how are we going to prepare and have like a 3 to 5 year plan here of how we can make sure that we're implementing this transition in the most appropriate way for all our little learners.
And I don't know that we're going to have to because it died. It died. So, but it'll come back next year.
Yes,
Yeah.
come back around. So we'll see. This is like our third try at it.
I'm sorry, folks. I turned it off.
In terms of curriculum assessment and instruction, we are starting our last assessment season, so we are knee-deep in AP testing. Right around the corner, we have MEA Science for grades 5, 8, and our third-year high school students. And then also we'll be doing our NWA, which, if you remember, the state is asking us to do a fall and a spring, so we'll be starting that spring assessment, as well as our regular local assessments. Our teachers are busy assessing, but also continuing to finalize, and we still got 30-something days of school left, so they're teaching all our munchkins all the way through. So we're fast and furious, starting to also finalize our summer school things, and we'll have a little bit more details in the next month.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Financial report was in the packet. Finance committee met. We'll get a report from them later. Principal's report.
Jamie is not here this evening. She has a child under the weather. So she said she'd give you a report of the next meeting. Brent's gonna go first.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
Good evening. So we're preparing for the test month, which is May, at the middle school. As we have the STAR assessment, the ME Math and Reading, which is the new assessment. We also have the MEA Science, the Fauna Spinell Reading Assessment, and adding to that, the 5th grade also has the Day's Math Assessment. The primary school is offering the STAR Math and Reading Assessment, the Fauna Spinell, the Dibbles, and the Easy CBM. So that's coming up this month. We heard that from Ms. Martin. Mrs. Bouchard, our 7th grade science teacher, had Emma LaRusso from the Androscoggin Soil and Water Conservation District come to support a lab on soil conservation this past week, which is pretty exciting. We have pictures to post on Facebook. The 5th and 6th grade STEM teams and the 5th grade science classes will be heading out to the Cobbossee watershed this coming Monday to release their fry. So I talked earlier this year about the baby trout that we're raising to help support the watersheds over in Litchfield. The clock is ticking ever closer to the end of the school year. Planning is underway for end-of-year activities such as step-up events between grade levels in different buildings. We've had several parents helping us plan the 8th grade semi-formal coming up in June, which is very exciting for us. We are eliciting funds and supplies from the community as our 8th graders have not had the opportunity to fundraise like most years due to COVID. If you wish to donate or support us with your time, please reach out and let us know. But thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, one more note real quick. We're having a lot of good feedback from applicants. We have 3 positions. We have 3 people retiring. We've had 15 to 20 applicants for each one of our positions, and that is a number we've not seen in quite a few years, so that's pretty exciting for us. So.
Thank you. Mr. Mr. Aliberti?
Yes.
The seas will part, you'll be able to get
Yeah,
here.
I understand. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share some happenings at Oak Hill High School. Spring fling took place prior to vacation. Each class took part in developing movie trailers, dress-up days, and after and before school games in a quest to win the coveted Spring Fling trophy. The week culminated in an amazing assembly where each class competed in games developed by our health and physical education teachers, Jeff Wright, Brian Daniels, and Sarah Rose. The result, guys, is pretty mind-blowing in the sense, no, and I mean this sincerely, in the sense of the community that Oak Hill has a tradition of. And to see like a large number of students participating in these games, is, as I said, mind-blowing. And so we have a few photos and a short video. I don't know, Sam, if you're able to get that running up there or
You
not.
want this? Yeah.
Does that Apple TV work there,
Yeah, it
Captain?
does.
It does? All right, excellent. All right. Just we'll show you that. I also asked Mr. Daniels to be here just so he could talk a little bit about the games that they developed, but we'll do that in just a moment. But I'd like to thank the aforementioned health and PE teachers, the Oak Hill Legislative Assembly advisor, Liz Tibbetts, and our class advisors, Heather Finn, Derek Anderson, Brian Daniels, and Angelo Roy, as the week and assembly were coordinated so well. And additionally, Kirsten Arndt for supervising the ceiling tile decorating contest. And this year's winners were the seniors. So here's just a couple of photos. And Mr. Daniels, if you wouldn't mind coming up, maybe just narrating, not necessarily the photos, but of the table games that are being shown here in just a second, but the some of the games that you guys supervised. So they'll do this before and after school, and they have to earn points for their respective classes. So you can see some kids playing Jenga and chess.
Trouble.
Trouble.
Gotta pop it in the middle.
Yeah, that was always a good one, right? And so, as far as the rally is concerned, I'll be quiet. Why don't you speak to this?
Sure. So after a week full of fun, first of all, good evening, everyone. After a week full of fun, games before and after school involving Trouble, Sorry, Jenga, Go Fish, any sort of childhood game you could think of that gets kids involved, and various dress-up days. We just kind of wanted to make the cultivating experience kind of special for them. So Jeff Wright, Sarah Rose, and I came up with a variety of different games. I think you'll see a snippet of a video earlier if Miss G wanted to. Oh yeah, she's shaking her head. She wants to terrorize me. I won't give away too much of that yet because you'll see how we introed. I think some kids might have mild PTSD. We'll see. I'm not sure. It was right. Yeah, yeah.
This is the intro to it.
Perfect.
Is there any Celine Dion in this right now? Who's up there?
So we, because Spring Fling didn't have an actual dance this year, we wanted an opportunity to kind of start out the assembly with a dance-off per se. So I am in all pink on the stage because I'm a freshman advisor and our class color was pink. And I want to say I think we almost had 100% participation right now, which is pretty remarkable. Almost every single kid was on the floor. You can see we had laser light shows going in the distance. We had disco balls going. And it was a guided dance-off. Every kid was mimicking me, using their cell phone as a light. We went through, right now I'm washing the dishes, rinse, wash, dry. We went through like the sprinkler, the lawnmower. What else do we do? Some newer dances like the gritty the kids do, different things. This was the cowboy, yeah. This is the Eastern, the Western's gonna come in a minute here. So as like you can see, we had almost 100% participation, which is really remarkable. It was really fun to see. A lot of the kids who typically wouldn't be involved in something like that were in the front row, having a blast, just dancing, didn't give a care about anything in the world. They just wanted to have a good time. So it was a great way to kind of start off the assembly, get everyone participating. And then from there, that's great. It was good. From there, we had a variety of different games. We had kids dressed up in like helmet football pads and shoulder pads using lacrosse sticks in a game we call like Snow Fort, where we set things up and they're throwing balls all over the place, or a game we call Little Taparoo, where we split the gym into 4 sections and we have a massive volleyball, and essentially if the ball lands in your side of the court, you're out. Just a handful of games to get kids participating, active, and moving to kind of end the week. So it was a really good time. I think the kids loved it, had a lot of positive feedback, and again, it was just trying to make it extra special for them after everything we've been through the last year or two. So
Nice.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I think what I appreciate the most about the department working on that is the accessibility piece, right? Like it isn't maybe like back when I was in high school and it was the tug of war and things like that, and people didn't necessarily feel comfortable doing that. But one of the ones that was on there was like a paper airplane contest where the kids had to basically make a paper airplane and they had to land it on a runway, which was one of the cheering mats. And I mean, you could see, it's not super difficult to make a paper airplane and fly it. So just the participation is just pretty remarkable. It blows my mind every year when we do homecoming, and then whether we do winter carnival or spring fling, it's just impressive. It's really a great culture to be a part of. So I just want to thank everybody that helped out with that. Yes, the seniors did win. Yes, there they are, holding the trophy, which I think we need to probably get a bigger trophy, is what it comes down to. But anyway, so moving on. As you may or may not know, we run vacation school during our school vacations, and vacation school is an opportunity for students to work with content area teachers to get caught up or get ahead on work they may be either missing or needing to get ahead on. The April break was yet again another opportunity for vacation school to take place. And we had a total of 50 students over 4 days come in and take advantage of this important opportunity. I'd like to thank once again our dedicated teachers, led by English teacher Katie Stubbs, for supporting our students. Coming back from vacation, we're in full preparation for end of the year events. The calendar is quite full of assemblies, award ceremonies, testing sessions, prom, and of course graduation. Advanced placement or AP testing begins next week. We will be conducting 11 AP tests over the next 2 weeks. Guidance Director Melissa Gagnon and AP Test Proctor Steve Bergeron have worked hard to create a comprehensive schedule to allow for minimal distractions for our students participating in these important exams. And our first senior awards ceremony will be this Friday at 1:30. The assembly is to recognize students achieving summa cum laude status. And we have 11 students this year who have worked extremely hard to earn that distinction and who will be recognized. And I also have a list of senior events, end of year events, so calendar stuff. If you'd like to take a look at those or attend any of those, we're always looking for chaperones for prom. So if you feel like coming and hanging out at Lost Valley with us, by all means, feel free to come on by. We'll let you in. We won't let you leave until the end. But there are a number of different events there. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know. Happy to have you guys join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our seniors. And that's all I have for this evening. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, no other reports? We have no old business? New business. Motion to approve the following administrator for a 1-year contract from July 1st, 2022 through to June 30th, 2023. Amy St. Pierre, Assistant Principal at the Oak Hill Middle School, Sabattis Primary School.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? See no discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. 7.2 is a discussion and possible action regarding changing late start Wednesday to early release days. So what I'd like to do is rehear the report that was given on the results when we went out to poll the community and the committees that was looking into it, their thoughts, and then discussion would be, should somebody make a motion one way or the other, then we would have the discussion under the motion, which is the more appropriate place for discussion to be held. All right, instead of doing a lot of discussion and then a motion. All right, so once these handouts get out,
This is the survey results. I think Kathy gave this to you in November maybe, but this is a fresh copy.
Okay, so anybody that was part of the group that was looking this like to speak about the results or the recommendations from the group that was looking into it?
So Scott brought it to CAI saying, could we please reevaluate this? And so we did by sending out this survey to all the stakeholders, staff, students, and parents, to ask them where their preferences lie with this, in terms of whether they were wanting to stick with the current late start Wednesdays or move to early release Wednesdays. And part of the reason was to try to align ourselves more with other districts, knowing that there potentially are activities and things that kids are involved with on Wednesdays that they can't participate in because all other schools around us have early release on Wednesdays for the most part, Lewiston, Auburn area. So what ended up happening is we got, if you look at the responses, it was pretty amazing to get 762 responses. Part of that, I think, was Mr. Aliberti strongly encouraging all high school students to participate in that, which was helpful. And the comments, you know, as you can see, there are many pages of the comments, so you can take a few moments to digest that. The concerns that we had, because we went, as I said previously when we brought this last meeting, concerns were, if we're going to move to early release, would we want it to be just a couple of times a month versus every Wednesday? Because some districts end up looking at, if you have a 4-day week, then they would not have early release on Wednesdays. But consistency-wise for families, like we never say we're not going to not have late start on Wednesday. The only time that doesn't happen is the first day of school. So again, consistency-wise, we kind of arrived at the point that we would potentially just have it every week. Because that way, you know, it would be better for parents and students in that nature. It was also surprising how many staff stated that they would prefer early release as well, because a lot of it was surprising to me anyway, because the comments were, a lot of times if they get in a flow of what they were doing in terms of PLGs, it was not helpful to have to cut it short after an hour. I realized that there would be concern that people would take advantage and have to leave and that sort of thing, or ought not to go, but I think, you know, administrative-wise, people would have to have some level of accountability with their staff as well. There was also concern about kids being home alone or daycare provided for them, and a couple of things that we talked about were the problem that that could be anticipated was not having the person who runs aftercare be available, just because that aftercare entity is completely separate from the school. So trying to look at problem solving that, because activities after school, if you're getting done early, kids would be required to leave and then have to come back, in terms of athletics and groups and that sort of thing, because of lack of supervision. But there was also conversation that if indeed we go with that, over time, there's great potential to have mentorships with other high school students, potentially, to be leading study groups or anything of that nature, to be increasing their volunteer time with hands-on with kids. So, you know, there's pros and cons both ways, I guess. Did I get most of it? Did I forget anything? Okay.
Okay, so is there a recommendation or a motion that that wants to go before the board for consideration?
The motion would be to move to have early release every Wednesday and have it be incorporated into the calendar for next year, was what we arrived at. And if there's further discussion, we would welcome that.
Can you remind us again of the time?
I think it would need to include timing.
Yes, what did we decide for middle school and high school release time would be noon, I believe?
Yeah, it was 11:30 or 12,
And then,
I think it was 11:30 and 12.
yes, or a noon and 1 was the other option that we discussed also.
Okay, so let's try and,
Which,
yeah,
narrow it down.
let's,
Okay.
so we're gonna go to a motion to provide for early release on
Mhm.
Wednesdays versus late start.
Correct.
The release times should be included in the motion.
Right.
For each individual school if they're separate.
Correct. Correct. And I believe we had arrived at, the last note that I took was, middle school and high school would be released at noon, and, what is it?
There's an
Pre-
hour difference, so
Yes.
whatever it's run,
Right.
so
Right.
middle school, high school will be an hour earlier than the elementary run.
Right.
And you have to remember, it doesn't hit that exactly on the nose
Correct.
because of our staggered release
Correct.
times.
Right.
But that, typically when we do an early release on like the last day of school or things
Right.
like that, we say 12 and 1, but then we publish out in the building exactly what that's gonna be for the building
Okay.
based on busing.
So-
It's a
Right.
generic.
So now we've had a lot of discussion on this, we still
Right. We still
need to set down the motion and then a second on that, and
Okay.
then we can do the,
So I would motion that we, how to say this?
move to an early release on
Move
Wednesdays.
to early release on Wednesdays for the 2022-2023 school calendar, with release being,
Approximately noon for high school and middle school,
yes.
and approximately
and then
1 PM for all others.
Approximately 1 PM for pre-K through 4th grade, yes.
Okay. So that's the motion, we understand that the motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Now we can have some discussion and more, there's questions about it. I know I have a few, but do other board members have comments? So I guess since I've been giving this some thought, because I know we had a lot of discussion when we initially went to half days on Wednesdays for the late start. One of the reasons why the late start was good was because research shows that our students probably should come to school later than earlier, because especially the older students aren't ready to learn at 8 in the morning, but they're more appropriately ready to learn at 10. And that has some impact on the lower grades as well. So that was one concern of mine, is that if we're going to do a half day, I think they should go in the afternoons where they're going to be more prepared. And I know I see one comment here about that they're not, I think students are more focused in the morning and start to lose in the afternoon. That's probably true because you're there the whole day, right? But that was one of my concerns. You kind of touched on the after-school activities. So we probably have athletic events that happen on Wednesdays after school. Those are 3:30,
2:30.
2:30. So if we let the high school students out at noon, we're going to have to get them back at 2, or we're going to leave them unsupervised in the school for 2 hours waiting for the athletic event.
No, they're not going to be allowed to.
Well,
be
I mean,
in
that's
school.
my
Right.
concern. How are we going to
Right.
cover that? Because that's going to take staff that is supposed to be
Right.
in the training and, doing the work, collaborative work.
We're doing that now in the morning. I drop my son off at the same time every single day because I have work obligations, so I gotta be at work. and he's not running amok in the school. So there must be some supervision in the morning, so somebody's not getting that work time in, supervising the kids that are there. So
Yeah, I think we
must
have.
be the same thing. We could just simply, this shouldn't be as convoluted of an issue as I think all we're really trying to do is just shift the day from.
I understand that's what we're trying to do. I have concerns with moving it to the afternoon versus the morning. And, and I'm just, asking my questions on it. I think in the mornings, we have a program for students to get there early on a regular basis for a little while. I don't know about
we really
Wednesdays
don't.
for sure.
No, we don't, for the most part. I mean, middle school and high school, I think, and Ben and Marco can talk about that. We have some kids that show up early. We have a few ed techs that cover that. We pay them a little extra to come in early because they're not contracted to work that time. We do a little bit for the elementary schools, but for the most part, they don't come until an hour later. The typical model for this, having worked under both, and I went to school under an early release model. You go home, and then, you find a way back. I mean, I went to Mount Blue High School. I lived in Wilton, and it was 12 miles away. We figured it out. I think that's what happens. I know there's concern with that, but that's what happened 20 years ago. Actually, longer than that. I'm sorry. Wow. I didn't realize that. But I think that's the typical model. I know they do it at other high schools. Jim can talk about this. At other high schools, they early release middle schools, and the kids get back. Parents, find a way for them to come back, or they carpool with friends, or things like that. That is the model that works elsewhere.
And that would be like for activities, the robotics club and all
Yep,
the
all
others
that.
that go and meet. So hoping that we can get them back in. You mentioned something about their daycare options. I don't know how many openings there are. If they only have to watch them for a couple hours in the morning versus in the afternoon until they're out of work, people get home at 5:30. Usually you have to have them out by 5:30. That's my experience, but there's probably some that run differently. And then I was a little concerned about when I look at the weight of the survey results. I mean, it's heavily balanced towards early release by faculty and staff and students. The parent segment appears to be, trying to read the map here, about maybe 25 parents difference between morning and evening, and maybe 450 to 500 parents out of a community of how many parents? So I'm concerned that there's a lot of people that either just ignored it or whatever, that when we make this change come fall, everybody's used to this, late start. Come fall, and they're going to get schedules, and they're going to get an early release. We're going to hear an awful lot from people who didn't pay attention for the survey, and it's going to cause a lot of heartburn from the plans that they've made over the years to go and support a late start. So, I mean, those are my concerns with moving it. Things that I thought of. I'm still concerned that it's a different world now. When I grew up, most families, there were 2-parent families, and most of them only had one working. So there was one at home, usually the mother, not always, but usually the mother, that could transport the kids back and forth in every place they needed to go. Unfortunately, that is not the model anymore. An awful lot of single-parent homes, an awful lot of them where both parents are working if there's 2. We send the kids home on a noon bus, and then we want them back for activities so that they can complete that whole educational experience, and they're going to have to rely on some way to get back. And if that means 4 or 5 high school kids getting in the same car and driving back together, hopefully they are responsible, but it's not like we bring them in on a bus, we turn them over after school directly to the activity that is supervised, and then after that activity, transportation might be 4 or 5 kids in a high school bus driving, or a car going home too. But that's more likely known ahead of time. And then we do have a late bus that supports some of those activities. So those are the things that I'm trying to rationalize in my brain on why we would make a change. I wasn't aware that a lot of other schools were doing early releases on Wednesday, and we were trying to mirror activity schedules. because we don't have robotics clubs together. You know, it would only be athletic events, and they're already set up throughout the conference, not based upon an early release, because it would be the same time on a Thursday as it would on a Wednesday for a baseball game. All right, so those are my thoughts, but interested for other comments as well. Robbie?
Well, I know when we set up early releases, Bob, we discussed both scenarios at the time. And at the time, we had an issue with staff meetings running over at night, right, Diane? And staff were being held over 45 minutes, an hour over while they were in the middle of meetings. And everybody's got someplace to be at the end of the day. So we figured by having that 1 hour on a Wednesday, every meeting had to be done at a certain time. And it was so we could lessen special professional development days during the school calendar by that 1 hour every Wednesday during the school year. So we didn't have to have, because we used to have, how many professional days, Andy? 10?
When I first got here, we had 10.
We had 10.
Yeah, now we have 4.
And now we have 4. So, my thought is, well, I know, administrators can keep an eye on meetings going over, but I'm worried, like Bob, is it gonna cut into time that teachers use to help kids after school? After you've had a math class and you don't quite get it, but you wanna stay after with your teacher, and I know it's only 1 day a week that actually affects that, because we still have 4 regular days during the week, so, but, if you have a blue day or a red day and you have that math class on that Wednesday and you want to see that teacher before you go home, you might not be able to because you have professional development, so you're going to have to go home, come back, and wait for a Thursday to maybe get the help you need after school. And I also think we're going to have an issue with clubs and organizations staying over that Wednesday. Maybe we just won't schedule robotics on a Wednesday or something like that to get out of it. So, it doesn't affect me. I have no more kids in school, but I think that's all things that we talked about when we set up early release, and if it's not an issue now, I'm fine with it.
Christie?
Couple of questions. When I'm looking at the time, Diane and I were just talking, it's 2 hours that they get out early, and currently Wednesdays are 1 hour.
Right.
Right. So would that mean we would do it every other Wednesday, or are we giving?
I would hope that whatever we do, it would be every Wednesday, would be consistent.
I would say it would have to be consistent. As a parent myself, the minute you start, and you all are parents, picking and choosing and when and where, it really becomes a nightmare for parents. I think from my perspective, I will just say this: there's a huge difference between an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. There just is. So, we had 10 professional development days when I first got here, which arguably was too many. It just was. It was too many. We've cut that down, though, significantly, where we're down to 4, which might not be enough. It is where we are, and that's what we have. So this time is really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, though, if you don't do, like, an hour at the end of the day is really not an hour, or an hour in the morning is really an hour. Because by the time you get buses rolling through and kids out of the building, and you know what pickup and drop off is like in the afternoons, that hour really will probably be about 35 minutes. And I think that's why it needs to be. If you're going to do early release in the afternoon, it's got to be longer than just an hour. It just has to be. And granted, it runs into instructional time. Jim just sent me a message. He brings up a good point. For sports, it actually could be advantageous for fall and spring because of our longer trips that we make. So I think there's that piece of it. But I worry about, an hour in the morning is really an hour. When I first got here, I loved the late arrival model. I thought it was great. As I've looked over time, I'm not sure that it is. We're efficient with it. We use it really well. But I think Diane will tell you, the minute you get into something, it's like it's over. And I think, I look at the survey results, and your parents are 50-50, right? Roughly. It's 25 between the two. So no matter what you do, there's going to be 50% that are not going to be happy, no matter what you do. However, your educators are telling you overwhelmingly that they think this is better. I think you have to weigh that. I think that's really, really important. You know, we talk all the time about how important our educators are and what they talk about in our classrooms, you know, how they need to have a voice. Well, they've had a voice here, and they've said, we like this, you know, pretty overwhelmingly, we like this model better. And I think we have to honor that, and from my perspective, we do have to honor that. It is very, very important. But again, an hour in the morning is very different than an hour in the afternoon. And I actually will say, if we went to an hour in the afternoon, you're not looking at your 4 days plus but you might as well just have your 4 days, because by the time kids are out of the building, that hour is shot. It just is. So again, my 2 cents.
Jill?
So just looking at it, if we change this to go to early release and say it's just not working out, is it something that can be represented to the board to rethink about in later times?
Well,
Part of me says that being able to make that adjustment would have to either be done at mid-year, or we would have to do the entire year and then go back and reevaluate
So,
and
like,
do it for
I
the
mean,
following year.
Obviously, staff seem to think that it would be their right move.
Yeah.
But what if, you know, after this year goes through of if we change it, having it changed, we just come back, they're just like, no, it just didn't work out very well for us? Is it something that we can go back with their opinion and
Yeah.
kind of revisit it?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that we can always reassess.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think you need whatever you do,
You
you
need
make
to-
a change.
yeah.
Whenever you make a change, I mean, changes are big. Changes are hard for people. It takes a while to figure out whether it's good. You need a year under a change like this to figure out if this is more beneficial than what we had before. And I would recommend that towards the end of next year, you have the same conversation. You go back, because this is a big change in practice if you do this. I mean, I've been here 10 years. We've done this for the last 10 years. I think it's actually 12 now, maybe. I think it had been in place for a year or two before I got here. So this is a major change to the way we do business. And so, you know, I think you have to go back and evaluate the change at the end of it.
I just, as a parent, I remember being very angry about the late start at first, but now I'm like, and kind of indifferent as a parent. I could go either way, but if staff is feeling this way, I'd prefer to go with what staff wants.
so I have a question, you know, kind of a numbers person. So faculty and staff, we have how many in the district?
Well, how many that responded? With
Well,
260 employees.
we have about 120 that responded.
Yeah.
130. I'm
130,
trying to read the
that's how
graph.
many- roughly how many teachers we have?
Yeah, but this is faculty and staff. That
Right.
should include,
I don't know, I don't know where the survey was, how we put that out, but I think that's,
Put it in their natural, so, staff get a peak of the week every Sunday, and
Yeah.
through, emails from the administrators, so they were all offered over a month to complete it.
Okay.
Each month, each week.
right. And so if we're going to cut out an additional hour out of instructional time than we are now, right? Because we're going to release 2 hours instead of an hour late start. So, you know, with those hours add up. What are we going to shift that we're trying to teach the kids that we're going to be able to lose, how many weeks in the school year? 30? 30 hours of instructional time. I mean, there's got to be a trade-off, right? I mean, if we were to just keep this, if we went full days every day, 5 days a week, and we whacked an hour off out of that day, something would have to give somewhere, something in instructional. So that's going to have to be a question on what educational opportunity is no longer going to be presented for 1 hour each week over the course of the year. Food service, we have to serve lunch, so a noon and 1 would allow lunch. That's not going to put a crimp on our food service people to now serve that breakfast on Wednesday mornings and then a lunch probably early. They're going to have a little bit earlier than it is now.
yeah, they're still having breakfast, and there'd be a space between breakfast and lunch. I mean, most of our lunches are done by,
They're all done by one.
yeah,
By 1.
12:30. What time are you guys done lunch, Marco? Noon? Yeah,
That would be the only one I'd be
Well,
able
not Wednesdays.
right.
Right,
This
yeah.
would, yeah,
Because
Okay.
of Wednesday.
yeah.
And
And you guys are
I
done
guess
then.
your response, Bob, I don't wanna look at it as what's gonna be lost. The idea is that our teachers are gonna have more time to work together and figure out some behavior plans and some academic times, that, so they can be more efficient, during the time that they do have students. So that is really our hope. You know, we do have some big initiatives with Power School coming on board with kids. We're gonna be having a new learner management system, a student management system. We're gonna have the data pieces. Our staff are gonna have to be able to understand how to look at that data and how to triangulate that data to make instructional, decisions. And so they're gonna need time to be trained on that and also to utilize that. So I would like to think that it's not, we're taking away time, but we're gonna learn how to be more efficient with the time that we have. And also give the staff support that they need, in trying to be responsive to, where the kids are at based on what happened, the last couple of years. So I'd like to think of it in a more positive way, that we're gonna be responsive versus reactive.
Right.
And I think if you look at across the board over the last 10 years, even taking up, you know, as you said, 30 hours, we're still at more instructional time than we were 10 years ago when we had 10 workshop days.
Could we split the difference and do an hour and a half possibly? Could you put, like, that would allow time for students to leave, talk to teachers after school, kind of do that transition. I mean, 2 hours seems like a lot to me. How about my vision when this all started coming out was just simply shifting that hour in the morning to an hour in the afternoon. But now some of these other things are kind of making sense to me, and I'm thinking maybe an hour and a half just for everybody to make that adjustment and transition from class time to after school work time.
Diane?
Lewiston does a half day, I think it's once a month,
Yeah.
on a Wednesday.
Yeah, just once a month?
Yeah. My daughter has the day off.
Yeah, they,
But that was a workshop that was by different schools.
Yeah,
Not everyone had a workshop.
we did that
but
once.
they have more
Yeah.
workshops than.
Yeah, they have more workshop days.
I will say from a parent perspective, it's a lot easier to get care for a whole day than it is for 2 hours in the afternoon or an hour in the morning. But that being said,
Yeah, we're not looking for a whole day, right?
And that would be a bargaining issue.
I also,
Is this gonna be a bargaining issue?
Well, no, because you're not changing the number of work days or anything like that. The other thing is your calendar doesn't have, you'd have to go back and reassess the calendar and look at number of work days. It just, that would be
Right, because we gotta have the 175.
we gotta have the 175 anyway, and then you have a prescribed number of work days under your collective bargaining agreements, you'd have to renegotiate. It would just open a Pandora's box.
I do like Scott's suggestion
Yeah.
of an hour and a half.
I think, we just need to be consistent whatever we do. I can't imagine looking at the school calendar and planning ahead, saying, okay, well, this Wednesday it's gonna be Beverly Blees, but the next Wednesday's not. It needs to be consistent no matter what.
I agree with that.
And it is true, Scott is correct there. I mean, I live in a school district where all of a sudden, 2 weeks prior or a week and a half prior, they're telling us the kids have a Friday off or half a day on a Thursday. It's tough. I have teenagers for the most part. I'm lucky, but for a lot of people, it's tough. So whatever it is, has to be consistent. But I caution you, an hour in the afternoon is not an hour. That piece is huge.
And according to some of these comments, even in the morning, because students are arriving early and, there's other things going on, and it seems like, I read a comment here where it said they were having a hard time utilizing the time in the morning for sort of the same reason. But it seems like a lot of these comments, they're clearly from the teachers, are really pushing towards that. And I think, like Andy said, we definitely need to honor that. It was so close on the parents' part. We're just gonna have to, people are just gonna have to make adjustments, just like I make an adjustment with my children to get them there late, so.
But you said you dropped them off early because you had a schedule.
Yeah, which is great. I have the ability to just maintain that same schedule and drop them off early, and so.
And I will say, by having early release, if there's families that have older kids in the home, the older kids will be there for the road, which is not the case right now, when you have
Right.
But on the flip side, research shows with our adolescent population, that having that free time before after school hours is when lots of things that we probably would not prefer for them to happen, so.
Yeah, but again, we're talking about an hour and a half. I don't know.
Well, but you're coupling that on to the
Maybe an
other
hour or two.
hour and a half before the parents get home. So you're making
I
it,
do worry about equity in terms of kiddos that don't have access or not connected to other kids being able to.
I'm
do
sure
that.
there's
So-
kids that are home alone in the morning too before school now, since we're starting it, so it's,
Yeah, but there's buses that will bring them to school, so that's my one.
but the
key
bus is
thing.
gonna bring them home, so.
But how can they get back to school if they wanted to compete in athletics?
Well, I mean, maybe that's another part of it too. I mean, think about the things that could even start earlier.
Yeah, so I just want, like, to think about that.
Well, the thing is they can't start earlier because of, if the coaches or advisors are in professional development, that hour, you know.
right. And almost all of our coaches are staff members,
Correct.
right?
No, it's actually,
Yeah, it's kinda,
It's
it's
kinda-
changed
it's
a
It's
lot.
it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
I would say probably half and half. Your co-curricular activities
Yeah.
Yeah.
tend to be more of your staff members, but I mean, I looked at Jim, from what I can see, we have a significant number of our coaches that actually work outside,
Yeah, about half, I'd say.
Yeah.
which has changed a lot over the last few years.
I
Yeah.
mean, not just simply like robotics club and all these other game clubs or whatever. You can't just do them Tuesdays and Thursdays when they're not, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know what their schedules are. I mean, it all works out. Those who currently meet on Wednesday now, we wouldn't have those, so they would go to some others. So I don't know I don't know how that will impact who the advisors are on multiple different clubs maybe, or any of the other arrangements. They're in two different clubs and they meet on different nights. Those are all other things that will have to be worked out by the students and their parents on whether they can continue and whether they want to continue on things that they used to do Wednesday. It should only hopefully impact the Wednesday ones and nothing else. All right, so there's been a suggestion, and I think it'll probably be put in the form of an amendment to the motion to change the hour of dismissal. But you're talking about, for us to get what we believe is the hour we're getting in the morning, in the afternoon, at what time should we dismiss in order to make sure that they're getting their hour of professional development?
Well, I would look to your administrators to say, what's the time it takes to clear the building? Because you really need the building clear. So,
Right.
I don't know, when I was at the high school, we needed a half an hour. I mean, I don't know, I'd look to Ben and Marco and Sam, say, if you need an hour to get the building clear, how much time do you need? Yeah, so a half an
So
hour.
I would just caution that the one piece here is Ferry Ricker, which is our transfer bus right now, and it is
Yeah.
much longer because it is 2 bus runs
Right.
and the transfer. It is much more, it's more like a 35-minute, clear, if not 40 minutes to do both runs and the transfer to get them on. So I would just be cautious that JD and Justin are not here to articulate what that time would be for that pre-K 4.
Robbie?
Yeah, I would suggest we leave it the way we had it drawn up. For the simple fact is, it gives us time enough to to clear the building, and if there is time there for students to meet with a teacher quickly for 5 or 10 minutes, I think that's that opportunity right there. And then we still got time on the backside to make sure we get the professional development that we need. So it would be up to the administrators to say, okay, we're releasing at 1:30, the meeting's gonna start at 2, and go for an hour and a half or whatever. So we can work that out. It's like any decision we make here, there're gonna be people that are unhappy.
Yeah.
So, we can sit here and hash out every possible scenario and not do anything, or we can just let the people that made the decision and put the forms together, go with that and see where it goes from there. If we find out we got time, next year we can cut it to half an hour. But I think for right now, I think the best thing to do is to leave it where we had it set.
At noon and
At
1.
noon and 1.
Noon and 1.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other discussion? So I don't know if we ever had any public pop on or not.
Not that I know of. Nope.
This would be something we'd typically open up in case the public had any comments to go and make on it. If there's nobody out there, then there's nobody here in the audience that would like to speak on this issue? Mr. Alberti?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I shared a similar concern with you, Bob, just in regards to instructional time. I mean, that's all I'll say about it, just because it is additional time that we're taking out of the schedule to, basically do professional development.
Any other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Just kind of ditto that. I mean, as an educator in the district, I wonder if we did this survey again now, what the teacher result would be. Just thinking if teachers were overwhelmed because of COVID and everyone was so stressed, if they would still feel like they really needed that time now when things are kind of normalish, compared to when the survey went out, people were stressed. And I also think with my curriculum, I've cut units out to see where that's happening. So if we're losing the actual instructional time, how much more are we going to cut? And I know we're thinking of the positive, not the negative, which I see, but there's got to be a balancing act at some point.
Okay, any other comments?
Do you not feel like you need more than the 4 days that you currently have for?
I could use all the time in the world.
Okay, so.
You know what I mean?
So an extra hour a week would be beneficial. It's almost like getting, like Andy said, 4 days almost isn't enough. So that extra hour a week you'd make good use of it, I guess.
To clarify, what exactly are you saying? An extra hour of workshop days?
Yeah, workshop days.
I'm talking instructional time in the classroom.
Yeah, no, I understand. But Andy said the 4 workshop days that you have is almost not enough. So getting an extra hour a week, would that be beneficial?
I think right now in the current situation it might be, just because teachers are stressed with COVID, but I think as we start to move out of this and things start to normalize, I think that would almost balance out. Which is why I wonder, again, the survey went out again, which I understand is a big ask, but I wonder what the result would be if teachers still really felt like they needed that, compared to how they might have felt months ago when we were in the midst of it.
Kind of what I was feeling with this hour and a half. It gives you an extra half an hour to clear the building around. I guess not being in education, I don't know if an hour is enough or not enough.
All right. Any other comments from the floor? Any last minute comments from the board members?
I know as an educator in the classroom, our Wednesday meetings were very productive, except you see the time and it's like your mind is not on it because you know your kids are coming.
Yeah.
You haven't run off that paper because the machine wasn't working or you've got to go to the bathroom before they come in. So I know that's really tough. So I know that a lot of people that I work with, we would have preferred an afternoon because when we get going on something and on a roll, we want to keep going, and it was tough in the morning.
So do you foresee what Robbie talked about, that you're going to go over in the afternoon? So now there's going to be pressure to stay more than the time allotted because they're in the middle of something?
Teachers will just do it if they need to.
Yeah, and there's actually a comment here. It says, every Wednesday it seems like we are never able to complete our work because the students are getting to school. If it was after school, we could take a few extra minutes to accomplish or finish the task.
Right,
Okay.
I totally agree with that.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, Ben?
I just want to say, the 4 workshop days really isn't enough. I could have used a few more days prior to school year starting to focus staff on social emotional pieces going together in middle school. It would have saved us a lot of time later on in the year. But it's got to catch 22 here. That 2 hours every Wednesday is a lot of time. We can fill it very easily, but those workshop days are really valuable. I really appreciate the effort to put together more time for us, being able to train their staff, it just really needed. But I also understand, again, the catch-22 would be, if we're gonna lose, 8 hours a month, we're gonna lose a whole day of instructional period a month. That hurts.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, so seeing none, then we'll call for the vote. So the motion is to change our Wednesday routine from a late start to an early release, with release times of approximately noon for the high school and middle school, and approximately 1 p.m. for all other schools. So with that roughly being the motion,
I think that was
Okay, I'll call for the, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And keep them up. Will need to be a weighted vote. All votes are, sometimes it's not necessary to count.
So,
Those opposed? The motion will carry. We got 3 Sabatis people.
yep, 3 Sabatis.
It'll carry.
Yep, motion will carry.
Did you get everything?
Yeah, I got it.
That was as close as the parent.
Right, right.
I can math out real quick if you want me to. It carries.
Yeah, well, we need to indicate, right, the weight of the vote in the minutes.
What was Jill's vote? Sorry.
No.
No.
Okay.
I feel like we need to put something in the calendar to make sure that we come back and revisit this and send out another survey in like, I don't know, February. Because that would make sense to me to
As far as
reevaluate
start, release time?
for, yeah, for like
We'll-
next
we'll-
school year to,
Yeah, we'll put something
you know
out.
what I
that'll
mean,
be-
just so that we can look at it again.
Correct?
Yeah, I mean, we'll figure that out. It has to be approximate just because of busing and things like that, but,
Right.
you know, what we'll do is modify the calendar. You know, the calendar's big as it is, but we'll put a color coding for early release on there. things
And it's going to be every Wednesday,
Right.
regardless, so every Wednesday.
We'll make sure it's big and bold, that there's a change so that they're.
And the
And
only
we
day
can-
that we wouldn't do it would be the first day of school.
Right.
Correct. Right.
That was the closest vote
Right.
we've had in my time here. 448 to 436.
448, 436. All right, that was close. Now,
This is one we've had.
now we'll all listen to Vicky go and talk about what she. Okay, let me go on. Committee reports. Finance Committee?
Yep, Finance Committee and Facilities met before the meeting tonight. I'll go over the financials on the revenue side, year-to-date. We've received 74.19% of anticipated revenues, and on the expense side, we've expended 73.32% of our budget. And Jessica says that we are in pretty good shape, and that we're just about where we should be as far as end of year stuff starts coming in. So, yeah, we're winding down pretty quick now.
Yeah.
We also met with the architects again tonight on the facility side of it, and we went over the outside of the building design. Talked about the ball field not moving. That's gonna save us $100,000, not having to move the ball field. We talked about
Emergency vehicle access.
emergency vehicle access and finding out about the new entrance, added parking spaces. Yeah, it's coming together pretty good. Then we talked about community meetings. We are gonna meet with the community, the select people and town managers on May 5th.
And I will be inviting them this week.
Yep, and we will have a community meeting on May 12th and May 26th. So there'll be flyers going out for that information. So there's gonna be a lot of things going on in the next month, month and a half. So, yep, things are really moving along pretty good. We talked about the boiler at Libby Tozier that went down with a leak. We went over 3 or 4 different scenarios, and it looks like we are choosing to replace the boiler as the best alternative. And Andy is looking into a performance contract that will get us bonded to change that, do some more energy efficiency work at Kerry Ricker. So that'll be in progress, but we have to do something with the boiler because it will not pass inspection. And repairing 40-year-old boiler is not very cost efficient because it's got 5 sections, and if you replace 2, you still have 3 old sections there. So we're gonna look at putting in a new system, new hot water system, which will be more efficient, get us off the K2 fuel oil that we use there, and the same thing with Kerry Ricker. So we'll be able to buy propane instead of K2 in the wintertime with that above ground tank that they installed at that school. So there's gonna be more information coming out for that, because I think that's gonna have to be a vote, isn't it, Andy?
Have to be a vote here. So what I've done, John and I met with Siemens on Monday, and we met with the service side of Siemens, you know, looking at what it would take to replace what's there. I mean, it's like John said, it's not gonna pass inspection.
Yeah.
We're in trouble there. It's functioning, we're able to heat the building with it, but the minute we shut it down, who knows? The minute you tear into that thing, I mean, hey, you might break half of it.
And not only that, but we're getting hot water.
Right, our hot water is off that. So after that meeting, we switched over from the service side of Siemens to the performance side of Siemens. So on Friday, I signed an LOI with Siemens, a letter of intent. We've got to do something. There just is no choice. So I signed a letter of intent with Siemens. Carrie Worms, who is replaced Tom Seekins at Siemens. She and Elmer, his last name escapes me, he's the engineer, will be up on Friday to take a look at our systems at both that building, Kerry Ricker, and at the high school as well. Just looking, we do have a pellet boiler up there, although we're not sure that's really a feasible, option. But looking at what maybe we can do, because if you remember, we've done 2 phases of a performance contract. And for those of you that don't know about performance contracting, it's a way to get some work done and try to recoup some energy savings costs to help pay for it. We've done 2 phases of that. One of the things we never did was we didn't touch the heating system at Kerry Ricker. We didn't touch the windows. In 2013, when we did the bulk of this, that heating system wasn't that old. Well, you fast forward 9 years now, that system was put in 1997. Right. We have to run K1. I mean, the design there is not good. It just isn't. It is what it is. But there may be some significant energy saving costs by retrofitting Kerry Ricker's boilers with propane to offset a good portion of the cost of a performance loan to pay for the replacement at Libby Tozier. We have to do it. There is no choice, and so this seems like the best way. The other piece of it is we didn't do any window work there. All those things. So they're coming up to take a look at this. They'll be coming to finance facilities at some point to present like what they saw and the options and things like that. But we're in a rock and a hard place. We have rolled the dice for the last, I don't know, since I've been here with that boiler. I've told you many times. I know Robbie's heard it from me. Bob's heard it from me. I think Jen may have too. I lose sleep at night about that boiler. It's from 1985. Well, that has come to fruition. So, we might as well take a look at, if we've got to do this, what else can we do in the interim to continue to work on the 3 buildings that we plan to have long term. It just makes good sense. So that'll be something coming in the future. We have a timeline here, unfortunately. We've got to have hot water.
The only silver lining we had with the boiler was that it didn't break in
Right.
December, it broke in March.
Right.
Because if that boiler had gone down in December, I mean, you're talking about putting a package boiler outside the building on a trailer and renting it until you could replace it.
Right. So the other piece of that too, thinking about Kerry Ricker has a gigantic hot water tank with coils in it. I mean, the cost to run that thing is astronomical. When Kerry Ricker was built, it was built the intention of a middle school where you maybe had showers happening and things like we don't have that anymore. I mean, you might have that if you needed it for a shelter, but you could get away with something significantly less and more cost efficient. There's energy savings. So when you do these kind of things, there's also money out there that you can tap into. That there's a $500 million infrastructure grant that came through the federal government that potentially is out there. There's also the Efficiency Maine money that's out there. So it's worth looking at. We're in a rock and a hard place with this. While we're at it, we might as well take a look at these other things as well. So.
Are there any rebates?
Well, that's the
Yeah.
efficiency main stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
They need to do like a heat pump or something so they can actually use them for cooling as well? Is there like
well, yeah.
building,
Air source heat pumps.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the engineers are coming up to take a look at it. I mean, we're talking air source heat pumps. for
Trouble
the
is
new
with
building.
cooling with that building, it wasn't designed for cooling.
Right.
So consequently, you're talking quite an addition to cool that building for that size. And, you know,
We looked at early on when the ARP money came around. We
Yeah.
started looking at air conditioning specifically for the high school, middle school. Middle school has some anyway, and Carrie Ricker. It was going to be, well, I believe $1.5 million.
yeah,
Yeah, to put air conditioning at Carrie Ricker, and that cost has just escalated.
when we built the middle school, it would have cost us $200,000
Right.
to do it while we were building it. But,
So, I mean, they'll come in, that's why they do what they do. They'll come in and take a look at everything and go, this is what makes most sense. But like I said, because we're in this rock and a hard place, we might as well take a look at this other stuff to try to offset some of those costs. So they'll tell us, this is what they do, they're very good at it, so.
So you don't think that the pellet furnace at the high school could be moved down there?
Well,
I mean, wood pellets are expensive, but they're far less expensive than oil or propane.
I mean,
According,
they're about
according to according to the state's energy site on cost per BTU or 100,000 BTU,
They are
pellets
when-
are a lot cheaper.
They are when you run your home.
Right.
They're not on that large of a scale. So that's the issue. I mean, and the other thing, the maintenance costs. I mean, Robbie and I had this conversation, John and I have talked about it. Like, we have that there, be nice to use it, but the maintenance costs alone with the cleaning and stuff like that. So they're gonna present all the options to us. We'll have options to look at, but moving the pellet boiler down is still, if you do that, you're looking at 100,000 plus just to do that. So there's that piece as well.
Yeah,
No,
and any chance, since Litchfield never turned over the lead to the property of the school, that they would want to chip in and pay for the boiler they're going to get in the building that we're going to get back to them here shortly?
Probably say no.
it's not a
Yeah.
you can make that, Bob, you can make that call.
I'll make the call.
I'm probably not gonna make that call.
I hear my phone ringing already.
Yeah,
I was just wondering, I mean, we don't have the deed, right?
Right.
Well,
yeah,
So-
by law, we own the building.
By law, we do.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Finance facilities?
No, that's it.
Can
First-
you remind me of the dates, sorry, for the public forum?
May
12th and 26th?
12th and 26th.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the selectmen,
Yeah,
what's that?
Your will would be at.
I think we said, what did we say, one of them at Carrie Ricker?
yeah,
one of
one
them
at
the
Carrie
middle
Ricker
school?
and one at the middle school.
Yeah, they'll be at 6:30.
6:30.
We'll be putting out flyers
Yeah.
and things like that, so,
And
There'll
the-
be flyers going home with kids, and
yeah,
it'll be on the website, and I'm
Facebook.
sure it'll be all over Facebook, and
Elon Musk let us
Okay.
probably put it on Twitter.
And we're still looking at a possible August referendum date?
Yes, yes.
And the referendum
Yes.
will be paid for by the construction loan.
So you don't need to worry about putting that.
You don't need to worry.
Oh, Did you notice how she said that?
Yeah. Okay, Personnel Policy Committee.
We haven't had official meeting with the subcommittee, the superintendent search has been meeting. We're currently seeking applications. We did staff listening sessions and community listening sessions yesterday at the high school. And listening ahead.
Okay. And I heard Mr. Wilson said that they have a number of applicants for open positions, so
So we are.
you'd probably be called on that to sit in on some interviews. Okay. CII Technology Committee.
We did not meet, and we talked about our issue previously in the meeting, so.
I have a question. So this change over to the new software, the new programs that we're going to use, is that scheduled to be in place by September? So the change in, just my little knife, the change in the late start, that professional development design is not going to help us because they already need to know how to use it by September? Just, yeah,
With pieces.
pieces, yeah. Okay. Board member comments. I was at the community forum, whatever the official term was, Sunday at the middle school. I noticed that we're auctioning off a bunch of bags of gifts. They didn't say what it was for, so I asked. They had to go and check, and they came back and told me it's to reestablish the food pantry at Cary Ricker and the backpack program. So that food bank at Cary Ricker, I think, was a wonderful thing that we had there to go and send food home with kids that might need it, backpacks, pick it up and go. So I'm very pleased to see that that's being reinstituted back out there.
It might be a conversation.
Yeah, it's
That's
a conversation that needs to happen. It was a school nurse who
Yeah.
put that backpack program
That's
on.
news to me.
And
Melinda,
once
no,
she
Didot,
Oh, I
left,
know
that's
that.
why it ended. It wasn't because of that.
All I know is that they went off and checked with somebody, and a staff member came back and said that's what it was for. So there must be plans, and there must be somebody that's gonna volunteer to run it. I think it's absolutely wonderful to go and do it, because, you know, Litchfield's gonna build a new food pantry, but that's only for Litchfield residents. They're quite clear about that. And so our students that attend school out there that come from other communities aren't eligible, nor are their parents. And it's the best way to get food out to the kids before they take off for a weekend or whatever, is to give them a backpack full of stuff that they can use and doesn't require a lot of preparation, maybe not even opening cans. But anyway, that's what I was told. So that was, I personally was glad to see that. It was a good turnout, a good use of the school.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that, so that would be news to me. I think there were issues with that program in the past, which is another reason why it ended. So I think that's a conversation that probably needs to be had.
They're probably looking to do it next September when you're gone.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Maybe.
Just saying. If you're that interested in it, you can hang around. All right. Any other comments? Okay, with all the business on the agenda having been completed, without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.